So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Gemini Call. The Gemini Call, for those of you joining us today for the first time, is the weekly stand-up from the Digital Twin Hub, where we have updates from various things that are happening in the world of connected digital twins, an opportunity for you to ask questions to our speakers. We'll be going through a number of presentations today, and they'll be done in order. And what we will ask is, if you have any questions for our speakers, you do them through Slido. The link is on screen here on the right-hand side. You go to slido.com, type in Gemini Call in the box, or follow the link that we posted in the chat window now, and we'll get into those at the end of the agenda. The session is recorded, so you can watch it back afterwards, but we won't be taking any verbal commentary during this session. But if you do have any inline chat that's not a question, please use the chat window within Teams, and you can @tag to direct conversation to people. So I'm going to hand over to each of the speakers in turn. They're going to avoid using acronyms and introduce themselves, and we'll go from there. So first, I'm going to hand over to Frederick from the University of Edinburgh, who's going to be presenting on digital twinning construction projects. Please, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for having me today. I will start with an acronym, COGITO. Don't worry about it. It's just a project title. It's a Horizon 2020 funded project that includes about 13 partners. And the purpose of the project is to indeed do digital twinning of construction projects. Now, you'll see here a life cycle of a building project or infrastructure asset project, going at the top from design, construction, operation, and demolition. The focus of our project is construction stage. A lot of digital twinning work you see is very focused on the operational stage of assets. We are focused on the project delivery and how digital twinning technology can help us in the project delivery. Why does it matter? Well, the construction industry is very important. It's about 9% of EU GDP, worth about 1.6 trillion euros. I think I put a pound here, but I think it's euros. It's probably the same now. 8% of the EU employment, so about 18 million jobs. So it's very important, but unfortunately, it also has a number of problems. It's seen broadly poor productivity growth for quite a number of years. It's about 1% annual gains. It's continuously trying to improve, but it struggles. And it has a lot of under-delivery performance. There are lots of rework that costs about 5% overall contract value. Time overruns. Most projects actually go over time, about 7% of total work hours. And there are some structural issues, like the highly fragmented nature of the industry with loads of small SMEs and limited levels of digitalization. The last 2 points are actually important. They are both an opportunity. The fragmentation can really be helped with the use of digitalization. But the other one is obviously a little bit of a challenge to integrate digital twinning because the industry starts from, let's say, a low ground. But we still want to focus on that and try to address especially the rework and time overruns and the performance. What do we propose? We propose to develop a digital 4.0 methodology that has the following ideas. We use what we call as-planned data, and that is data that emerges from the design and planning phases, such as the 3D model, the schedule, budgets, cost information, and so forth. We combine this with real data, and I wouldn't say real time, I'd say right time data coming from the delivery of projects. Some of it is real time, some of it is not. And that includes reality capture data like 3D scanning, images, but also IoT sensors that can be used to track resources. We integrate all this into our construction-based digital twin platform. And this enables a number of use cases that we are demonstrating in this project. I have 4 here, or 3 main actually, and one is kind of related to the 3 others. The first one is secure workflow planning and monitoring. So integrate all these data to do efficient planning, but also continuous monitoring of the delivery, the production, and adjusting things in real time. Dynamic safety planning and monitoring, again, improve safety planning, but also continuously monitoring and adjusting activities accordingly. And digitalize planning and delivery of visual and geometric quality control, and do all this in an integrated way with the digital twin platform. And to visualize all the results and help with the decision making for project management professionals, we have integrated data information visualization with both an off-site visualization tool, so to essentially mine and get access to information in the digital twin platform, but also an on-site one using augmented reality technology. Today, for the rest of this presentation, I will focus only on the core of the digital twin based solution we have, and that is the digital twin platform. What is it composed of? First, we're working very hard on developing an ontology network that integrates all the information, data, information, knowledge that is relevant to deliver construction project effectively. That includes collecting data from a number of domains. There's data about the product itself, the project and the construction site, the process of delivering construction, the reality capture data that we get from the site, and data related to the applications, the use cases. And within this, I mentioned the product is the building infrastructure asset and the construction site itself. The process we need to collect and link data related to the schedule, workflow, and the resources. Reality capture, I mentioned earlier, we collect visual in the form of 2D, 3D data, as well as IoT sensor data, like position data for our location data for equipment and workers. And then we produce information about or that supports workflow management, health and safety management, and quality control management. The 5 ontology modules that have been developed to date, and you can see a snapshot here. It's just a high-level snapshot about the product, the process, and the applications. And very importantly, we don't try to develop these things from scratch. We actually look at what already exists in terms of ontology that are widely used in this or other industries. And you have a list here of ETSI ontologies or WC3 ontologies. And this enables a more reusable and extendable solution. If you're interested in looking at this, this is the link to our current ontology. It's not updated in real time, but we create an update information. So it's publicly available. In terms of the implementation of the digital twin platform, if you're curious about technologies, we essentially have 4 databases that we use. One is called Triple Store. This is about storing the semantic network that links all the data. And then we have another 3 databases, one relational for project data, one for what we call IFC data, which is essentially the building data, and then for real-time data, so time series data, the IoT data. And then all this information is then linked through the Triple Store. And the digital platform is then provides a number of services. I won't go into detail what you would expect about manipulating data and making sure it is of the right quality, etc. Just to give you a quick snapshot, on the left-hand side here, you have a view of the network diagram that we actually have for our solution. And on the right-hand side is an example of query that was submitted to the digital twin platform. So the top is, the whole 3D model, but a query can be to get what we call a 4D snap. That is, what is the building model supposed to look like at time t? And that is provided automatically by digital twin platform to support the use case that needs that data. Finally, very importantly, for those who are familiar with this, we support IFC 4.3, which is essentially 4x3, which is about infrastructure type data, which is very new. And I'm just being told this is the end of my time. And we also have services that enables checking the data. I guess I mentioned that the data quality through another acronym called MVD, Model View Definitions, which enables us to define what we want very specifically for each of the use cases. And this is very important because we don't want to extract the whole database every time we need some data. We need a very specific subset of the information in the database. Okay, that's all with me. I'm slightly over time, but I hope you enjoy this and I look forward for your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So any questions, please do post them to Slido. The link has been pasted in the chat, and we will get to those towards the end of the session. Can I hand over to Dave Murray next, please, who will be presenting on how companies utilize existing skills when adopting digital twin technology. So Dave, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Simon, and good morning, everyone. I'm sharing the screen at the moment to make it easier for people to find, because I know it defaults to the person who's speaking. I'll turn my video off, and that, as I say, should make it easier to find the share screen. So I'll just move that on. So I'm intending to explore a digital twins project lifecycle in relation to the skills required to carry out key tasks. I'm going to look at how tasks are linked by validation and verification. Validation being a check that requirements are complete and clear, and verification being about checking that what we are building meets the actual requirements that we're building them to. I'm going to look at how this presents opportunities to provide the skills needed, ideally from a company's existing workforce. And I'm going to close by providing some links to other people and other areas where work similar to this is being presented. So I think it's always a good thing to set expectations. And what I'm offering here is a helicopter pragmatic view of how digital twin technology can be approached from a company's present position. Importantly, it's more about what's likely to be common with what you've got at the moment rather than what's different. And I'm not offering a magic bullet to fix the issues. What I am offering is what is possibly a different way to think about the issues, so that an iterative approach to implementation of DT technology becomes more feasible. But overall, what I want to do is to promote wider thinking and particularly sharing of pragmatic ways to implement DT technology. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. So on this slide, the horizontal axis at lost my pointer, at the bottom there is the life cycle of a project. And vertically, we have progress in 3 key areas of work that needs to be done. Oops. Just a moment. All right. I'll just find myself again. Just got my pointer in the right place. Sorry about that. So the first stage of if we look at the scenarios in the middle here, the first stage of this is defining requirements and the validation, during which software twin, a model of what is required, will be built and run in a scenario. And that phase will end when the stakeholders agree that what is the outcomes of these scenarios when run in the synthetic environment are producing the outcomes that are expected and are reasonable and what people agree are needed. The project then proceeds through its implementation phase, during which the physical entity and the software model and the twin is further developed until the point where it gets to be in use. Now, the important thing about this is that the scenarios can be run at any stage of that process, and the outcome from the scenarios should be identical no matter what stage of the life cycle we're in, and that's a very important issue. This slide depicts that if you take any mix of the software model or the physical entity, take modules, a full set of modules that obviously are compatible, and rerun the scenario, you should get the same result at any point and with any mix of the physical entity and the software twin. Now, this concept was proven by an MOD investment in this about 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm sure that we all recognise that this is an important feature of digital twins. But the scenarios can also be run for other purposes than verification. For example, you might want to run them to demonstrate the project's objectives to new employees, maybe new suppliers, or to specialists brought onto the project to contribute for a short period, as well as demonstrating to customers and other stakeholders. It's a very visual way of communicating the requirements, the current state of progress, and explaining to people what you're intending to do and why you're doing what you're doing. So running a project in this way, by having frequent repetition of scenarios, opens a significant opportunity. The benefits include simplified progress reporting, which I've just described. And by that, I mean, do the results from the latest iteration of whatever you're building conform to those of the previous iterations? If they do, then a stage payment may be appropriate, and it's a good way to show that you've reached that stage. If there are discrepancies, an in-depth review may be needed to see why there are discrepancies and if they're valid, if you wish to keep them, or whether you need to revert to what you originally thought you were going to do. It's a communication method. So running and observing scenarios becomes a way to communicate with all levels of stakeholders, and it's visual, as I've said, and it will allow much of the stakeholder communication to be led by the test engineers who run the tests throughout the life cycle. And that helps to free up design engineers and senior project managers. It also offers a very powerful and responsive project management tool with very low additional investment costs. Test engineers do what they're good at, adding project value, and at the same time freeing others and enhancing their own day-to-day responsibilities. So as DT Hub members, you're very probably aware of two areas, skills and capability, and the Defence Digital Network, where there's other material to do with what I've just been talking about. The skills and capability area has framework and capabilities, as you might imagine. The Defence Digital Network has got an expansion, significant expansion of this presentation and some other thoughts brought into it. If, depending on your discipline, you may not be quite so familiar with the IET, Institute of Engineering Technology, that has been promoting the role and image of test engineers under the leadership of Julian for the last year. You may also not be available of ITEA, the International Test and Evaluation Association, which is considering an in-depth review in this area. INCOSI have also done work in this area, which is important and worth taking a look at. So, in summary, the DT technology does not necessarily mean a big change. It can be approached by tweaking existing roles, and that's a good way to start a cost-effective implementation. The test engineer's role was briefly discussed in this presentation, but there are also other areas that this applies to. But as I said at the beginning, I want to promote wider thinking and sharing of experience about the implementation of DT technology. And what you're seeing on the screen in the middle there is a seed question that could be used, if you wish to start that debate. It's important that you share your comments and thinking and experience with the DT Hub. And there's an open section, but the Defence Digital Networks document section has, as I said previously, a much expanded version of this presentation. So I'd be particularly interested to see responses to that discussion document. So thank you for your time and look forward to hearing from you either in questions or via the DT Hub. And it's back to you, Simon.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Dave. Now, any questions, do post them into Slido, and we'll be getting to those in a second. But first, a couple of announcements from John, please.
Has it been sent? Because some hasn't received.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Holden, and I am the community manager for the Digital Twin Hub. And the only community announcement we have today is that we are currently seeking additional speakers for the Gemini Call. So if you are interested in presenting a digital twin topic, feel free to use the form that will be in the chat, or you can email me directly, which will also be in the chat. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, John. So we have a couple of questions on screen at the moment, which we'll ask for our speakers. Please do post any more you have into Slido, and we'll be getting to those as we go through. I'll ask them in order in which they're liked. So the more you like them, those are the ones we'll ask. And as we go through this as well, we also have 2 polls we'd like to ask the audience, and they'll be launched as well on the same link in Slido. So if you can go onto the webpage, they'll be reposted in the chat now. When the poll's launched, you can also answer that poll, which we're doing as we go through these questions. So the first question, Frederic, is for yourself. It says, thanks for the presentation. Will this work encourage and motivate more construction projects to A, design with BIM, and B, construct and hand over using BIM?
I hope so, because in order to make use of technologies like the one we're developing to support better delivery, we built on the fact that there is a BIM model coming out of the design team. And also we update that BIM model during the delivery. For example, we at the University of Edinburgh deal with the geometric quality control. So we record what has actually been built. We record any deviation, any defect, and we store that information in a structured way so that an as-built model can be generated and given to the handover and the operating team. So yes, I believe so.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Before we go to our next question, I'm going to ask if we can launch the first poll, please. So if all the audience, if you are interested in answering this poll, please do go to the link that has been posted into Slido and answer this. We will give it about 30 seconds for people to give their responses, and then we'll move on to our next question. Very much appreciate your inputs into this poll. If you could please very much help our future shaping and direction for the Gemini Call. We don't have any lift music that will play in the background, sorry. So you're just going to have to answer the poll and listen to the silence before we start again. 10 more seconds. Great. If we can take the poll down, please. And we'll have the next question. Maybe 2 questions. So maybe now answer the second question as we're launched both at the same time. See 5 people typing, 4 people typing at the top. It's a competition. Can we get more than 4 people typing at once? There's 110 people in the call. Let's see if we can get into double digits of people responding. You can see this in the top corner of my screen here. It's the little dots as if you're typing on a WhatsApp message, and then there's simultaneous people. There's a game. Can we get that to over 10 people at once? And then we'll move on to our questions. Thank you very much for your inputs and feedback into these questions. It's really helpful for us to make sure that the Gemini Call is providing the value that we want to give to the community, and that we're recognizing your feedback and inputs into it. Lovely word all there, showing the most prominent thing. Everything apparently is coming out top. You can be as honest as you like. Don't feel you have to give us very positive praise. If there are things that you think are constructive points as well, do put those. But anything that's just outright negative without any constructive comments is not going to be so helpful for us to improve. Right. Give it another few seconds, and then we will go back to our questions. We weren't able to get more than 10 people simultaneously typing, it seems. Maybe next poll. Great, another 10 seconds, and then we'll be closing the poll. Great, can we close the poll, please? Just waiting for the screen to update. So our next question, whilst that's coming through, is ontology as a recurring theme. Is there any emerging lead source? And is Uniclass UK a preferred format? So I guess I'll ask that to both of you, but if we can start maybe with Frederick.
I'm not entirely sure I get this question correctly, but creating ontologies is very important to define domain knowledge. And ontologies are not usually, especially in the construction industry, where we have many domains that have to come together. There's not one source for ontologies. As you can see in our example, we use linked data to connect and reuse ontologies that exist elsewhere and that are meaningful. For example, when you use sensors and you want to connect sensor data, you're not going to create a new ontology for this information because that already exists. It's a matter of using it and integrating it with ontology specific to your domain. So Uniclass is one source of classification information. That's something that can be used to get standardization. But I wouldn't say Uniclass is, I don't know, I wouldn't focus on something like Uniclass necessarily. It's a matter of creating a network of domain knowledge that is relevant for the use cases, and that will most likely integrate many different portions of networks from elsewhere.
Brilliant, thank you. Dave, anything to add to that? If not, we'll go to the next question, which is for you anyway. You're on mute if you're talking.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I have nothing to add to that. That's fine, Frederick.
Great. Next question, Dave, for yourself. How do you see the defence network progressing the digital twin ecosystem?
Yeah, okay, interesting, good question. I see it as sharing, as I said before. I think the defence sector has got different skills and different approach to digital twins to that in the commercial sector. And I think both sectors have got something to learn and to give to the other one. And the defence sector has got a lot of money to spend and is spending a lot of money. But it's in some areas, it's much further back in terms of skill and experience than the commercial sector. And that's where I think there could be sharing. It's high tech, certainly, in the defence sector. But a lot of the pragmatic and process that there's room for development within the defence sector for a process and a pragmatic approach. And I think sharing is the answer to that. Thank you for the question.
Very good. Next question here is, in terms of reality capture using laser scanning, the limitations it has of line of sight capture. Of course, you can capture things you can see. Has any work been done to connect this data with building services in the model that cannot be captured using a laser scanner?
Once again, I'm a little bit confused by the question. I'm not entirely sure what it's about. I mean, certainly, you cannot capture everything through laser scanning. Some things can be fairly hidden at some point. So maybe you cannot get everything, but certainly if it can be captured, then we will capture it to do geometric quality control on that. So something I haven't mentioned, I could say also, is that we do a lot of work on the planning. So when should you go and scan something? At which point the scanning should happen? Where should you put your scanner to get the right data? And how to conduct the digital quality control automatically, given that information, in order to define whether we are within or out with tolerances, and you can store that in digital twin. But obviously, you can connect all these at the end with anything inside the digital twin. Depends what you wish to do there. I don't know what's the use case the person has in mind.
Very good. And question here is the industry in danger of having multiple ontologies and as a result causing even more disparity and silos in the industry?
I think this is a big thing, but we have, I can't remember, I think there are 4 sister projects funded at the same time through this EU scheme. And one thing I have been pushing, I'm the technical coordinator for one of those, Cogito. But one thing we've been working really hard is actually exchanging experiences and knowledge about this and making sure that we can develop something that we collectively agree upon, so that we don't develop one ontology per project, but actually one ontology that we all agree could serve all these projects and use cases. I think ultimately the industry will converge, but I think there is certainly a risk at this stage that people suggest different things, and that could create silos temporarily at least.
Very good. Great, thank you both, and thank you for everyone partaking today. That's all we have time for. As I say, the session was recorded. Watch it back if you were unable to make it, or share with any colleagues. This session is open to all of industry, so we do encourage that if you have any friends or colleagues who would like to join, please do forward the invite. As always, continue the conversation on the GT Hub, and see you next week. Goodbye for now.